未来を見ているねるねねるね神の子よ災い
So the bread isn't necessarily drying out and losing moisture to the air. The starches themselves are just hardening from the inside out.
Exactly. The moisture is still in the loaf, it's just no longer trapped inside the starch molecules. And here's the kicker. That physical process of starch crystallization happens most rapidly at temperatures just above freezing.
Just above freezing.
Roughly between 35 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the exact temperature of your refrigerator. By putting a loaf of bread in the fridge, you are placing it in the absolute optimal thermal environment for it to turn into a solid rock.
You are supercharging the staling process. So if the fridge is out, what is the solution provided by the text to actually prolong the shelf life of the bread?
The extreme cold. The manual dictates that bread must be wrapped tightly with cling plastic to prevent surface dehydration and stored directly in the freezer.
Why does the freezer work to keep it soft if the fridge makes it hard?
Because the freezer drops the temperature so dramatically and so fast that it entirely bypasses that danger zone of crystallization. It drops the internal temperature of the bread well below the freezing point of water, halting all chemical and physical movement.
So it pauses the chemistry.
It essentially presses pause on the starch molecules. They don't have time to crystallize. When you take the bread out and thaw it later, the starches resume exactly where they left off, maintaining their soft, gel-like state.
It is brilliant. The fridge accelerates the chemistry of staling, but the extreme cold of the freezer freezes time itself.
It perfectly encapsulates the entire manual. Every single action in the kitchen, from saving a piece of bread to cutting a sandwich to putting out a fire, is governed by these rigid, hidden physical laws.
And what a journey it has been today. We have taken the TESDA NC2 Cookery Prep Manual, which looks like a simple workbook, and really unpacked the hidden universe inside it. We started on the microscopic biological battleground, mitigating physical, chemical, and biological threats, and racing against that exponential 4-hour bacterial countdown clock.
We harnessed the violent thermodynamics of grease fires and understood the critical temperature-limiting difference between moist and dry heat transfer.
We looked at the literal cellular makeup of animal muscle, using myoglobin to understand the function of dark meat, and used the carving fork trick to visualize the exact moment proteins denature. We entered the cold kitchen to study the load-bearing structural engineering of club-high sandwiches and the fragile temporary suspension of a 3-to-1 vinaigrette.
And we ended in the bakery laboratory, where the digital scale rules with absolute authority and where we learned how fat microscopically shortens gluten strands to create tender pastries.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to think back to that romantic, artistic image of the chef we started with at the top of the show. The next time you step into your home kitchen to make dinner, or the next time you sit down at a restaurant and read an a la carte menu, I want you to look at the food entirely differently.
Yeah, look at it with new eyes.
You aren't just looking at a meal, you are looking at applied sciences. You are looking at biology, chemistry, thermodynamics, and mathematics, all meticulously controlled and orchestrated by human hands.
The professional kitchen is not just an artist's studio. It is a highly demanding, unforgiving laboratory where the laws of nature are manipulated for our enjoyment.
And it leaves me with one final provocative thought. Something for you to mull over the next time you are packing your flour into a measuring cup or deciding where to store your bread. We have seen how the difference between a delicate pie crust and a tough piece of bread is just a microscopic coating of fat.
It's a tiny coating.
We have seen how the safety of your family comes down to an invisible exponential countdown timer on a plastic glove. With all of these rigid, unbreakable laws of physics and chemistry dictating every single culinary outcome, is cooking really an art at all? Or is it simply the most delicious, universally beloved branch of chemistry that we have culturally disguised as an art form?
That is a question that changes how you taste everything.
Keep that in mind next time you turn on the stove. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Have you ever completely just totally frozen under pressure?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. I mean, you know the material. You've practiced the task 100 times in your living room, but the second someone is watching you, the second there is a ticking clock or, a grade on the line, your brain just shuts down. The preparation just totally evaporates.
It's the worst feeling.
It really is. And well, what if that high-stakes performance isn't, say, sitting at a boardroom table or standing on a public stage, but in a kitchen? You have a razor-sharp knife in your hand, hot oil is just bubbling furiously right in front of you, and an examiner with a clipboard is scrutinizing your every single physical movement.
Yeah, that is a profoundly visceral kind of stress right there. You aren't just trying to recall information for a written test. You are attempting to coordinate fine motor skills, manage these highly volatile thermal dynamics, and, maintain strict hygiene standards, all while your biological fight or flight response is actively screaming at you to just drop everything and run away.
One for the hills, exactly. Which is why, today, we aren't just looking at a standard cookbook in this deep dive. We're opening up a set of tiny, highly engineered survival cards.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, they're designed specifically to basically hack your brain's panic response during a high-stakes culinary exam.
So for those of you listening who might not be familiar with this, we are looking at a set of memory recipes geared toward a TESDA-style assessment.
Right.
And TESDA, that stands for the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority over in the Philippines. It's the national vocational authority there. And their culinary assessments are just notoriously rigorous. They act as this massive gateway for chefs wanting to work internationally.
Yeah, the stakes are incredibly high for these candidates.
Totally. So this guide we are unpacking, it's essentially a psychological life vest for that exact environment.
And what we're going to do today is unpack 3 incredibly specific, highly structured recipes from this survival guide. So we've got buttered carrot and corn, chicken lollipops, and a Filipino-style macaroni and carbonara sauce. Sounds delicious.
It does, but our true focus here isn't just the culinary output. We are really looking at the psychology of performance under extreme duress. We're examining the sensory cues, the very deliberate visualization techniques, and the mnemonic devices.
That goes rhythmic chants.
Exactly, these rhythmic chants that this protocol uses to physically force a panicked human brain into flawless execution.
It's wild, and the constraints of the environment we are examining today, they're just completely wild. Everything we are discussing is scaled down to a single serving, just one portion.
Right.
So if you're listening to this and thinking, well, it's just one plate of food, how hard can that be compared to working in a busy restaurant? It's actually much, much harder, isn't it?
Oh, it fundamentally changes the physics and the entire margin of error of cooking.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. In a bustling commercial kitchen where you're making a 50-gallon vat of soup, you have this massive buffer. If you oversalt a massive pot slightly,
You just fix it.
right, you can add more stock or maybe toss in a potato to absorb it. You can adjust on the fly. But in a highly controlled assessment environment where you are producing exactly one tiny serving of buttered vegetables or just 2 individual chicken drumsticks, neatness, precision, and safety become absolute.
Wow.
Yeah, there is zero room for hiding mistakes in the volume. One extra pinch of salt in a single serving doesn't just alter the flavor profile a little bit, it mathematically destroys the entire dish.
Okay, well, that is terrifying.
It is.
So before you ever touch raw meat or hot oil, a candidate has to prove they have foundational physical control, right? And in this protocol that begins with basic vegetable prep, we're looking at the very first task. Buttered carrot and corn. Yield. Exactly 1 serving.
And right away, the methodology is introduced. Every recipe comes with a psychological maker, this acronym. For the buttered carrot and corn, the memory code is BBTT.
Boil, butter, toss, taste. I mean, that sounds completely rudimentary, like cooking 101.
Yeah.
But before you are even allowed to think about the stove, you have to basically master the geometry of the vegetable. We're talking about dicing a carrot here. And the guide breaks down the anatomy of a safe dice with almost surgical precision.
Yes. Let's look at the physical sequence it demands. First, peeling and trimming the fibrous ends off, standard stuff. Then, cutting the carrot into manageable 2 to 3 inch lengths. But the critical non-negotiable moment is step 3,
Which is?
creating one flat side. You are explicitly instructed to slice a thin sliver off one side of the cylinder so the carrot can sit perfectly flush and flat on the chopping board.
Okay, and if you're listening to this and thinking, it's just a carrot, who cares about a flat side? You have to think about the physics of a rolling object.
Right.
The guide actually refers to round carrots as tiny orange troublemakers, which I love.
That's a very accurate description.
It really is. Because trying to quickly and safely chop a perfectly round, hard root vegetable, it's literally like trying to perform delicate surgery on a rolling marble.
Yeah.
It is a massive safety hazard.
Absolutely. A sharp chef's knife hitting a curved, unstable surface, it's just going to glance right off.
Yeah, and one slip, and your assessment is over because you've just sliced your hand open
Yeah.
and contaminated the whole workstation.
Game over.
Exactly. So by slicing off that one thin piece and creating that first flat side, you completely anchor the chaos. You change the physical properties of the object you are manipulating.
You are neutralizing the physical threat of the ingredient. Yeah. And once it's anchored, the protocol outlines the rest of the sequence. You slice it lengthwise into thin, flat pieces, which the guide calls planks, and you're specifically aiming for about a 1/4 inch thickness.
Okay, 1/4 inch.
Right. Then you stack 2 or 3 of those planks, and importantly, no more than that because a high stack becomes super unstable, and you cut them lengthwise again into sticks. Finally, you turn the sticks sideways and cut across them to create cubes, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch cubes.
Planks to sticks to cubes. It's like a very literal assembly line. But, I have to push back a little on this extreme rigidity.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, why the total obsession with a perfect 1/4 inch cube? Why can't we just have rustic, kind of uneven, home-style chunks of carrot? Does it really matter that much for a simple side dish?
It matters deeply, and actually not just for aesthetics. In an assessment context, uneven cutting isn't just an aesthetic failure. It is a profound structural and chemical failure.
Really? How so?
Well, cooking is ultimately about heat transfer. Small, perfectly even cubes will absorb thermal energy at the exact same rate. If you have a massive rustic chunk sitting next to a tiny, thin sliver in the boiling water, the heat penetration is entirely skewed.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, by the time the thermal energy reaches the center of that large chunk to make it tender, the tiny sliver has completely overcooked. Its cellular walls, the pectin that's actually holding the carrot together, they've disintegrated, turning it into mush. And the protocol makes it very, very clear. Mushy carrots signal to an examiner that you lack fundamental environmental control.
So control is really the baseline here. Okay, so we have our structurally perfect, tiny 1/4 inch cubes of carrot. We have a separate small bowl with a 1/4 cup of yellow corn. Now we move to the first B in BBT boil.
And again, the instructions demand very specific visual tracking. The water goes into a small pot, just enough to cover the vegetables, which minimizes the time it takes to heat up. But the guide provides a really vivid visual cue for the boil. You are not just looking for hot water, you are looking for the surface to move rapidly, like tiny glass beads jumping.
I found that description so fascinating. Tiny glass beads jumping. Because it's not asking you to measure the temperature with the thermometer, right? That takes precious time and cognitive effort you just don't have. It gives you a visual shortcut.
Precisely. It is effectively offloading the cognitive requirement of understanding temperature into a really simple pattern recognition task. And then, crucially, the protocol dictates the sequence of entry. The carrots must go in first.
Right.
Why? Because you have to respect the cellular density of the ingredients. Carrots are a dense root vegetable, so they require 2 to 3 minutes of sustained heat to break down that rigid cellular structure.
Makes sense.
But the corn, which is significantly softer, or perhaps even already pre-cooked if it's coming straight from a can of it, it only goes in for the final 1 minute just to absorb heat. The guide provides a specific mental line for this. Carrot goes first because carrot is firm.
It makes complete logical sense. But, when you are drowning in cortisol,
Oh, absolutely.
which is why these rules are written as absolute unbending laws. So we've boiled them. They are tender but maintaining their structural integrity. Now comes the draining. And there's a massive flashing warning sign here in the text. It demands that you drain the vegetables thoroughly, like you must let the water completely drip away.
This is a really critical chemical intersection in the dish, and honestly, it is where many novices fail. Water and liquid fat fundamentally repel one another.
Right, oil and water.
Exactly. If you bring a pool of residual boiling water into the next step, which involves coating the vegetables in melted butter, you are going to create a complete emulsion failure.
If you're listening, you've probably experienced this in your own kitchen at some point. It's like trying to put a rubber raincoat on when you are already soaking wet from a rainstorm.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, the water on your skin creates this frictionless barrier. The raincoat, which represents the butter in this scenario, has absolutely nothing to grip onto. If you throw wet carrots into melted butter, the butter will not adhere to the vegetable surface. It will hit the water, separate, and just float to the top.
Yeah, and the protocol explicitly warns that instead of a glossy